and start the recording. And with that, we will pass it to Jon and Sohrab to tell us more about the other apartment. So thank you all.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for joining. So I think we're gonna share a little presentation. I'm not sure. I guess I'd like to start with a question of how many folks, and maybe if you can use the raise hand function, have seen the project either in Iran or in Pittsburgh.
All right, Mary Lou, Greg, Karen, Julie, Sarah, Sumyo. Well, you guys can see the hand raised too, so I won't read those all out.
Okay.
Apologies.
A good bunch.
Yes.
That's it. Apparently, that made Sohrab leave. Okay, so good. So we'll like overview a little bit of it, but we're actually going to try to talk a little bit about what has happened behind the scenes, and then we're going to focus a little bit on the last thing we've done, and then some ideas we have moving forward. Yeah, I think, Sohrab, anything to add? No, nothing to add. Okay. He's in a virtual mock-up of his apartment at the moment. I'm in Montana somehow. I don't know why. Okay, so I'm going to try to share my screen, and we'll go from there. So this good, everyone?
Yep, we can see it.
So yeah, so maybe we'll talk through the premise, and then we'll kind of present how this project actually worked and manifest in both cities. So Sohrab and I have been friends for quite some time now, and in many ways, this is a project that is about friendship, I guess, and about the times that we live in pre-COVID and in COVID, where there's so many restrictions. You know, specifically, Sohrab and I have been planning this project for many years, and he was denied a travel visa from the Trump administration to, you know, he's going to come and we're going to sort of do some planning. But we realize that that's actually, even though it's an absurd condition on arbitrarily applied to many different countries, it actually offered us a possibility to create a workaround or a loophole in the kind of sanctions, the economic sanctions, the physical sanctions, the political differences between our countries, and create a space that defies all of those limitations. So the premise here is essentially we created a parallel universe. We used a maybe fictional, maybe actual theory that there could be more than one reality in the world, which is certainly something that's kind of political and philosophical for us, and created an exact replica of Sohrab's apartment. You see on the left, everything mostly on the left will be in Iran, and on the right will be in Pittsburgh. So the facade, the interior architecture of the apartment, and all of his personal possessions have been replicated through a variety of means, and we'll sort of walk through some of that. And it was an opportunity for us to construct a space that just doesn't exist in life, so that we could actually collaborate and be together. And essentially, it was a very open-ended question. We didn't know exactly what we would do after we created this space. I mean, the space itself is perhaps the first version, and all the possessions. And maybe in a simple form, it's both a autobiography and a portrait. So from Sohrab's point of view, it's everything that he's accumulated in his whole life. And for our point of view in Pittsburgh, it's, you know, close, detailed attention to, in the portrait vein, of someone else. And so it's kind of also, I think, for both of us, a kind of radical act of empathy within a time where empathy is in fairly short supply. So these are the various rooms. This is the blue room, and maybe Sohrab, you want to walk people through the apartment?
Yeah, so this is what I call the blue room. This is the studio. This is the room where I'm actually at the moment. And this is the blue room. The studio leads to the bedroom and the blue room. The blue room is kind of like the heart of the apartment. It's in the middle of the apartment. And it has my library, which was once Sazmanav, which is my art space. The library for the art space is now in the blue room, together with the Museum of Sohrab collection, which is again, it's just some of the objects that I have collected over the years. So they're all in this blue room.
And this is your dining room. This table that we recreated was that your dining room table when you were growing up?
Yeah, and my parents. Yeah, that's was my parents' dining room where I also dine at, and I had that for a number of years in my previous apartments, and I now have it here.
Bedroom.
And yeah, the bedroom.
We were able to get the IKEA. So there are a couple of objects we were actually able to buy. They exist in both universes. This IKEA couch, which Sohrab actually has 2 of these, we got shipped from Washington, D.C. I had to like scour eBay. But most everything else has been actually constructed or made. And so maybe part of the process, since Sohrab wasn't able to visit, the entire replication process was done through sharing of photographs. And so to remake Sohrab's rugs, he would hold them up, give us the dimensions and photograph them as high res as possible. Here's another version. You can see his hands holding the rug. And then we would have to like digitally clean this up. And you can see here's the rug on the left in real life, and here's our replica. So we found a company that prints rugs for casinos, like, you know, with images on them, I guess. And so we sent the digital files to the company, and they then replicated the rugs. But the process in the Mattress Factory, you know, this is kind of their specialty, right? And the staff were amazing in helping us in this process of replication. So you can see the first thing we had to do was from photographs, you know, recreate every element from the floors to the architecture to the facade of the apartment. And one of the interesting things is that the room we're creating it in is about 2 feet narrower than Sohrab's actual apartment. And we have to go under the sprinkler system. So you see on the left, the ceiling is a little bit lower too. So we're kind of slightly distorted version of Sohrab's actual reality, which means we had to kind of proportionally shrink everything. And so a lot of the process of the project looked like this, just thousands and thousands of detailed photographs of, you know, architecture and objects. And it was really, you know, it's an interesting way of looking, of like, you know, when you have to make something, you're really, really incredibly closely looking at it. And that's back to this notion of portraiture. But here it's like a portrait of architecture, a portrait of possessions. So this would be like his radiator, which we would get, you know, incredibly detailed instructions and measurements and photographs. And then here's the radiator on the right. This is some of the furniture that we replicated. Now his radiator is metal. Ours, we made it out of wood. And then here's the final product, which is kind of an exquisite object. So here's some of the prints that we made, and the rugs, the books. I think I've got a slide that kind of goes through the process of the books. So, you know, this is like an OCD dreamscape. Where we had folders for, you know, like the hippo toy has a folder, and then it has subfolders with lots of photos in it, which allowed us to kind of, you know, recreate each of the objects. And here's a good example of, you know, the furniture and objects and the flooring and the rug all kind of remade. And represented. Well, I mean, there's an infidelity, which is interesting to us too. The fact that like you can't ever quite get something perfectly replicated, and there's this kind of new thing that is discovered in translation, which we've kind of embraced. The bathroom. Again, on the left will all be images of Sohrab's apartment in Iran. This is on his porch, and we remade the cigarettes. And Sohrab, do you want to quickly talk about Super Sohrab? And
Sure. Well, Super Sohrab is my alter ego, which is a part-time superhero based in Tehran. So I have a custom, and that's the custom. That the custom was duplicated also in Pittsburgh. And with Super Sohrab, I don't necessarily do superhero things. I just do what I do, and like everyone else, I just get by and do normal things, ordinary things, and then I have to deal with everything that everyone has to go through, including bureaucracy or just like visa complications, or just getting a visa, getting rejected for a visa, or that sort of thing. So I document those things, and I do make videos, I make comics, I make interviews, part of that, and also arm wrestle. I have this like arm wrestling with Super Sohrab, where you get to arm wrestle with me, which I don't really have a strong arm, but then we get to have this like conversations, one-on-one conversations about life, power, struggle, and all that. So that's just in a nutshell what Super Sohrab is.
here's an object. I just came across this last night, Sohrab. So Sohrab got a piece of the Berlin Wall, and so we replicated the piece of the Berlin Wall. I like the idea because I always think that these pieces of Berlin Wall are already fakes, but like a fake of a fake. This is like, just to make this one box, Sohrab had to, literally take the box and scan it, scan all the sides of it. Well, it's not a box, I guess it's a circle container. And then we would print it out. We went to actually Center for Creative Use, found a similar box to then paste on the print. This is Sohrab's library he was talking about in the Blue Room. So this was actually quite a challenge. Like, how do you replicate all of these books? And so the process for this, which took maybe several months, was Sohrab and Golnoush scanned every single book that he owns, and sometimes they would scan them as small groups. And then the back cover of the one on the left and the front cover of the one on the right, we would then like clean it up, turn it into a file, cut it out, and place it on these custom built wood boxes for the books. And then you can see this is kind of our very ham-fisted way of replicating the books. It's all wood still, like books are, I suppose. And in some ways, when you see this, the kind of illusion of the apartment becomes, very apparent. Do you want to very briefly just talk? You want to talk about the structure?
Sure. So basically, what I call my apartment at the moment is Museum of Sohrab, which is basically it's just my apartment, and the collection is all the objects that I own, and including all the furniture, together with some highlighted objects, which are being featured in the Blue Room, where you see at the where the library is. So that's Museum of Sohrab. But since 2009, I've been running an art space in Tehran called Sazmanab. And it has almost always been located inside my apartment. So that's where I lived. And so and it's been located in a variety of different venues in Tehran, including this apartment now, part of the other apartment. So basically, I live here in the apartment. I usually I have a bedroom, or there's a studio where I have a sofa bed where I sleep, and then there is a bigger room, or Sometimes it's like a white cube where I hold the events and exhibitions. But with this apartment, it's just I have a smaller white cube room, and then we use the entire apartment, including the bedroom and studio and everything, to host exhibitions, and that's what we did during the other apartment. With Sazmanov, I've hosted more than 100 events and exhibitions and hosted residencies over the years. Yeah, you can check out the website. So basically what we did, we also, while duplicating the apartment and the entire apartment with all the objects, we also duplicated Sazmanov, my art space, and the programming. So every object and every performance, every work was duplicated as well during the other apartment. And where we had 3 exhibitions. This was the first exhibition, voiceover, which was curated by me and Joseph Del Pesco from Caddis. And what we did, it was a video exhibition. We had videos by 6 Iranian and American artists, and we showed them in the event room of the apartment, which is this white cube space that we had in the apartment. And this was at the same time when we opened the other apartment exhibition as well, which was in
I like how someone in in Pittsburgh is sleeping.
Yeah.
In this is a.
So yeah.
So Rob,
yeah.
we have a question from Shomoy. What does Sazmanab mean?
Yeah, Sazmanab means Department of Water in Farsi. And back in 2009, when I first started Sazmanab, it was in this street called Sazmanab, and it was right across the street from the actual Sazmanab, which is the Department of Water of that region of the city. So that's why it's called Sazmanab. And at the time, we were doing these events and performances and works that were kind of also in the local vicinity of the space. And also it was interesting for us because Sazmanab, Department of Water, which is kind of responsible for distribution of water. And so that was kind of also for us metaphorical in a sense that to have a space that is responsible for distribution of art and culture and connections, and that's it. So that's what Sazmanab means.
Yeah.
So after being open for a couple of months, I came in one day, I guess it was after the Mattress Factory there's like that one free day that you do. And I know every single object in the apartment. In this object, this cassette tape showed up miraculously. We didn't know who placed it there. It's a very DIY tape. And I opened it up and it's like handwritten notes. And there's a social media handle. And I looked it up and it's a band from Mexico City. And called Para Decir Adios. And apparently he left, it's just really an individual. He left his demo tape. And it was interesting to us that like someone from Mexico City would leave a demo tape in a replica of an Iranian apartment in Pittsburgh as a way of promoting their band. And so we got very excited by this sort of action that occurred, and we immediately made a replica, or Sohrab made a replica in Iran of the tape, and then we decided like our entire next exhibition would be based on the fact that this cassette tape was left in the apartment. And so I'll play, I think I have a little audio of the music that's on the cassette tape.
En tu mirada, tus palabras son las vagas de las que quiero más y más. Qué placer escucharte decir. Te quiero.
So you get a sense, it's very DIY, like a lot of energy. So what we did for the exhibition was we invited bands from Iran and from Pittsburgh, or from Tehran and Pittsburgh, to come to the apartment and do cover versions of every song on that cassette tape. And so the bands were given the original song, the lyrics, the chords, and then they completely reconfigured them in their own way. And so what you see on the top is in Iran and on the bottom is in Pittsburgh. And we asked the bands to come to, it was 8 bands total. Each one performed in one of the different rooms of the apartment. These are individuals actually, but not bands. And I think I have a quick video clip. So that was Inez and the Homewood Sound Machine from Pittsburgh, who did this incredible rendition of the song The Silence, which became the title for our new cassette tape. And this is the dual openings, and it shows the videos presented in each of the rooms in which they were shot. And that's the cassette that we produced. So right before COVID, we were going to do this, which was, you want to talk about it, Sohrab?
Sure. So for our, I think which would have been our third show, we were looking at, we wanted to actually do a residency, and so we had to think of a way how we can actually duplicate a residency, because there's a we have to have someone in both apartments that are the same, kind of the same, almost the same, just like all the objects are almost the same. So I knew of a twin here in Tehran. One of them is actually in Amsterdam, and one lives here in Tehran. And yeah, we thought it would be interesting to have twins. One would go to the Pittsburgh apartment, and one would stay here in Tehran. So yeah, that was the plan.
So yeah, the COVID hit, the Mattress Factory closed. We all went into a severe state of anxiety and depression. Sohrab and I had planned a whole bunch of projects that would happen online, and we realized none of them were very interesting, because what was interesting to us was that we had an actual physical space, not that we did some sort of virtual pairing. And so we kind of went dormant. And then the Mattress Factory opened about a month and a half ago or so, and we decided we would use it as an opportunity, because what we had now was a kind of, number one, a very interesting parallel. We're both dealing with COVID. Things have been quite difficult in Iran related to that, obviously here as well. But the Mattress Factory version of the apartment is now open to the public, and Sohrab doesn't feel comfortable justifiably letting the public in to his space. So we use that condition to, and the fact that both of us were kind of riddled with anxiety at the moment, or still, as an opportunity. So we brought people in to train Super Sohrab, or help Super Sohrab kind of deal with the conditions that we're all living under. And so we brought a therapist, a Tai Chi instructor, a dance instructor, and a singing instructor. And they came into the event room to meet with Sohrab, to Super Sohrab. And again, as Sohrab described, Super Sohrab is just Sohrab with the costume, trying to kind of move through life. You didn't also point out that his mom hand sewed the costume for him, which seems an important factor. So yeah, so this was kind of like our way of using the situation that we were stuck in, both, I guess, globally, but also very personally, and the psychological space that we were stuck in, to kind of reimagine, or to heal, or to overcome, or to just deal. And so I'll play a quick 1 minute.
I have OCD.
Expansion in your rib cage.
I'm kind of like jolting. It's kind of like a tension is Yeah.
It's like I'm really tense.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. You got it. Yeah. Where shall I go today?
And if it gets too much, I get this like sort of panic attacks.
Where shall I go today?
Yeah, so I'm figuring out who I am, my identity.
Where shall I go today?
It's kind of hard to see myself as just this whole body and
Where shall I go today?
So yeah, I'll stop screen sharing, and that's kind of where we are now. We're actually trying to find other venues, although there's a pretty tough time to find any venue to do anything, to take the project. We've had the whole project actually developed with the premise that we were going to make a sitcom together in a place that looked identical with characters that happened to live in 2 different countries but didn't know they did. And so that might be a future version of this, but maybe we could just take questions.
I'll just note for the Where Shall We Go Today that's playing right now in the other apartment. I could sit there for a very long time watching that. Sohrab, it's really enjoyable, especially the hip hop trainer. That the hip hop dancing of Super Sohrab, learning how to hip hop dance is amazing. Remind me, were you guys looking for specific people like a vocal coach and a therapist, or were you just open to any sort of different expert?
I think and that was, the popping was taught by Mario Quinn, who runs Level Up Studios here in Pittsburgh, who also participated in the previous project. We knew that while we were making, the video is actually about 30 minutes long, or no, 20 minutes long, I think. And we knew we wanted something that was physical or visual to some extent. But then again, I guess the therapy wasn't very physical. And therapeutic. And yeah, I think that, and it's this kind of opportunity, like I think we were also playing on the notion of something that we experienced. Like I started doing yoga online, or everyone's doing these like online lessons, right?
Yeah.
Or like, oh, I'm gonna all of a sudden learn embroidery, or I'm gonna learn some new skill during the pandemic. But most of us actually don't. We do like a class and we give up because we're so depressed. And so I think we were playing upon that, but trying to get someone to really like come into the space. I don't know, Sohrab, if there's more you want to add.
Yeah, no, so
It seemed therapeutic, the different things you went through.
yeah, it was definitely therapeutic. Yeah.
We have a question from Mary Lou. So Mary Lou, I see your hand raised, so I'm going to allow you to talk. You are unmuted. Oh, let's see if I can unmute you here.
Let me press it. Are we done it?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Hi there, guys. This is one of my favorite projects. There's something, as I work from the discipline of architecture, there's something so similar to our process in the making and remaking of an idea and a space. And I love all the ironies in the opposites. But I have a question about the kind of fetishizing of object, and which relates to its museum context, where I was just wondering whether for Sohrab the objects have changed completely by the very careful observation that you've had to invest in every item, and has it increased the value of these originals, or have they become kind of dematerialized for you?
Well, I guess before, even before we did the other apartments, I'm kind of like I do have that sort of OCD where I document everything, where I catalog and collect and catalog everything that I have. So I do have that fascination with objects, and not just objects, but files, with everything else, and archives basically. So that's what I'm interested in, and also in the kind of work that I do at the art space that I run. I'm always fascinated with different archives and how accessible they are. So that's the idea of Museum of Sohrab, which is kind of like someone doing a museum of themselves, and everyone in their own archives. So that's just something that has always been interesting for me. But I guess having the apartment, and then I do look at some of the objects, I guess, in some other way. It's interesting, and then I sometimes I get them mixed up, and when I see pictures, I can't really tell which is which sometimes. So I don't really know, and then they're kind of the same, but they're not really the same. And when I'm here and with my girlfriend, and I'm referring to an object, I keep calling it by the name that we came up with, and it's in the files, and it's in English, and that sometimes it's it's weird, but yeah, I do that because it's just we're now used to it's just part of the project, and so that's what happened to the objects in my apartment. For me, that's
It was also that interesting. So Mary Lou, when we were talking about deinstalling, right, and taking down the building, and I remember Sohrab was like, got really sad about that idea, because it's like we created this real version of his life that exists, for him, because he's never visited this exhibition, but it exists like in his consciousness. And then the idea of like that disappearing, even though it's like, I could see psychically that, if any of us did that, if we replicated our life so closely and it existed somewhere else and was available for like the public, and then it disappeared, even though we still have exactly what we started with, which is like our original, there's like a loss there, definitely. And I feel it too, in a different way, certainly. But it's interesting how there's a loss of something and you still have it.
Yeah, and I also noticed them a lot. I haven't before. I can say I wasn't really paying that much attention to some of the objects, but now I know where everything is at all times in the apartment, and that's yeah.
Yeah, so for me, that it relates to the making precious everyday life, and so the Michel de Certeau observation of the French Paris apartments is prosaic at one level, but incredibly deep and meaningful at another level, because it is part of everyday life. So that aspect makes the care. Each crack on the floor is a really important aspect to the world we have around us. Anyway, fantastic.
Thanks, Mary Lou. It's funny because when people, I think some people come into the Mattress Factory, and what our project looks super normal. Right? It's just because there's like big colorful things and things that take like engineering and take you into a fantasy space, and that's like the Mattress Factory. But what on first appearance seems like incredibly banal, actually for us at least is kind of like a sort of Herculean miracle that it even exists, and that sort of just using what is already there as opposed to discovering something or creating something brand new seemed like an important part.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Mary Lou, for the question.
Thank you.
All right, we have a couple more here. Loretta asked an interesting question. Are you planning to have someone in Pittsburgh wear the costume of Super Sohrab and get training from Iran?
Well, Sohrab can't have anyone come into his apartment right now. It's just not really a safe thing to do. So the training would have to be pretty limited. And yeah, we talked about it, I guess, but it didn't quite seem right. I think if we had the twins, maybe they would have done it, but it didn't seem right for someone who wasn't, like, for us to create like a fake Sohrab or something.
All right, and Greg has a question. Has Sohrab visited Pittsburgh? And I'm also gonna allow Greg raise his hand. So if you'd like to talk, Greg, I will also unmute you as well.
I guess we got the answer that he hasn't been able to visit.
Yeah, I visited in 2016. This was right before the elections, and the only time that I visited the US. And we did that while we were researching the sitcom that we were originally wanted to create. And during the time, Jon and I been meeting with people who we thought were interesting or maybe helpful in the sitcom that we were hoping to create, like screenwriters or partners. And so that was that was what we were hoping to do at the time. And then once I went back, and then there was the elections and everything changed.
But I hope that you can find another venue also for this, because to me, the banality of the apartment, I heard it described as a while ago, it helps with the geopolitics and the demonization of the Iranian people in America. It helps to break down that mindset and propaganda that we've been subjected to here over the last 40 years. There's something strong about this apartment, the other apartment, that it helps to break that down. So I hope you can find another venue for it and continue it on. I really do like it. I really do like this piece. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've almost forgotten that aspect of it. I mean, we've been doing, I did Conflict Kitchen, and we started with Iran, and Sohrab was involved in that, almost 10 years ago, and other projects we've been doing that, yeah, fundamentally deal with like demythologizing the kind of differences that we're constructing in our imagination about nations, etc. And yeah, it's funny, we don't really even talk about that anymore. We just talk about like the details of the things that we're working on a, like depression in COVID or something like that, or play.
Yes, would love to follow the other apartment as it hopefully makes its way to other spaces. We have a couple more questions. One from Steven, who asks or notes that the other apartment seems to be a lot about intimacy, and asks, why is the physical space so important to building this? You mentioned that purely digital events during COVID would not achieve your desired result.
Yeah, we did. So when we were doing Conflict Kitchen, Sohrab and I did a bunch of we did this like virtual meal where we had a table in Iran and a table in Pittsburgh, and we put them up against a video screen. So it seemed like it was one extended table, and we cooked the same food. And I think the food was the thing that really brought us together, because it was so, right, it is an element that moves through your body, and you experience it without even thinking, you have a sense of it. And but the technology is kind of clunky, and sometimes just reinforces distance, and we're so now kind of used to being mediated through means like this. And on one hand, it brings us together, but for us, like really the feeling of being in a place, like smelling a place, the architecture in relationship to your body is a more intimate kind of form of engagement than perhaps even like, you know, sitting down and talking on Skype to someone.
Thank you. A few more questions coming in. Connie Peltz asks if you can explain your experience in exposing your entire life and living space to the public and to the world.
Yeah, so I had been in a way used to that in a sense when I was doing Sazmanab, and also and I was live. I used to live stream from my apartment when I was also doing Sazmanab, and not just the events, but also like the what happened after, where I had friends over, and everyone was kind of I mean, at least in my vicinity and in Iran, in Tehran, everyone knew how I lived because I mean, my apartment was this space. But I wasn't really exposed to this level of public exposure. So it's been interesting. I guess during the first phases of the when we were planning it, at the time I was somewhat hesitant in parts of the apartment where it would be duplicated. Some of the objects would be duplicated. I mean, we ended up doing everything. We didn't leave anything out. But that was, I mean, I had that small reservation at first, but then became normal. And what's been interesting is that, yeah, it's very interesting. And I receive images, I mean, either for John or just I get tagged in these images on Instagram, and I look it up, and then I look at them and see it's someone taking a selfie in my mirror in my bedroom, or someone is just sitting on my bed, in my bed and in my bedroom. So it's weird. And it's good weird. It's weird in a good sense. So yeah, it's interesting. And again, it's that yeah, I kind of like that. Especially right now, it's during COVID, I haven't had anyone over, and there was a couple of times since Mattress has been opened that I've also seen people in the apartment. So that's also nice that someone's at least in one of the versions of the apartment.
Fantastic. Another question from Mary Lou is she's wondering if the Mexican musicians involved in the reproduction of the demo tape at all.
We got his approval. So he has a brother who lives in Pittsburgh, who apparently he was visiting during that time. And I guess he did a show at the something room. What's the
Rock Room, I believe.
Rock Room,
in
yeah.
Hill. Yeah.
Sorry. And that's what that demo tape's from. And then I contacted him and told him like, hey, we want to have artists in Pittsburgh and Iran cover all your songs. And he was totally down for it. He sent some CDs, DVDs, cassettes, just moving back in the technology. He sent some cassettes that we also sold. I think they're available right at the Mattress Factory. So yeah, he's totally, we weren't going to do it without him knowing about it or his approval. He seemed, I mean, we assumed that he, you know, this would be something he'd be interested in. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And I'll add that I personally was shocked that cassettes were there's still a huge market for them. And we actually did sell out of the cassettes that they sent us to sell. And we also had the recordings available that you guys produced as well that sold very quickly.
It's interesting because, you know, it's like such a hipster millennial thing, right, to do cassettes. But I don't think that people are doing cassettes in Iran, right, Sohrab?
I haven't heard such a thing. I don't know. There may be, but I haven't heard anyone's doing that now here. I don't think it's a hip thing at the moment.
He had to get like old cassettes from his parents' house to record on.
Love that. And Loretta's asking, wondering how you two first met.
I was doing a project in LA where I was tracking the sun, well, really as the Earth rotated, but basically like the sun for one day at noon for 24 hours, have it projected into this exhibition space. And so I was looking for someone in every time zone in the world. And I knew someone else, a mutual friend of Sohrab's and mine in Iran. And he's like, you should try this kid, Sohrab. He'll stand up on his roof for an hour with his laptop pointed at the sun. And so we met through that. And then we did a project called Never Been to Tehran, which was asking an international group of photographers who'd never been to Tehran to take photographs in their hometown of what they imagined Tehran to look like. And then it was uploaded to this photo stream that was kind of shown around the world in different galleries. And then Conflict Kitchen. Really, I think a lot of the impetus was our friendship. And every 3 years, it seems like the United States is about to go to war with Iran. And the case we make is very similar to the one we made about the Gulf War, right? You just demonize an entire population, its country, its government, turn them into an enemy that can be bombed without anyone in America really knowing anything, right, about the country or culture, without many people in the government knowing anything. And so for us, that was another opportunity through Conflict Kitchen to kind of address, a very different narrative and experience. And that's been like 15 years, I think. Yeah. So how old are you now, Sarah? You're like 31?
Yeah.
So I knew him when he was 16 or 15. He was already remarkable. He was already doing amazing things at 15.
Sohrab, I'm actually wondering if you're still practicing any of the skills that you were taught in Where Shall We Go Today?
Well, actually, I was thinking of maybe continuing doing Tai Chi, but I haven't really planned when I'm going to start that. But I got the popping thing was very interesting, but it was really difficult. I had a really hard time focusing, and it was really difficult to focus on moving different parts of my body and synchronizing that, and that was really difficult. And yeah, I'd say I'd like to do the Tai Chi, and the singing. I've been doing that. I mean, what I've been doing. I mean, that kind of. I mean, I'm not good at it, but it's. Yeah. So that will go on.
I thought you were quite good at the singing personally, Sohrab, much better than me.
Thank you.
We have a question from Sarah. Is the cassette demo and other recordings going to be put on a CD for purchase? And also just to note that she loves the whole apartment exhibit and the idea of the alternate reality.
We don't have it on CD. I think we'll just put it on our website and we'll make it free. I mean, they're sold for like $1 or $2 at the Mattress Factory. They're basically just sold for the cost of the cassettes. So we'll definitely make it digitally available. It's actually really, there's some good stuff on there, I think.
Yeah, it's great music.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say to that point, as far as mentioning you'll be on your website, as for us to continue to follow you guys, after your time at the Mattress Factory, is the website or social media the best place to continue, keeping up to date with what you guys are working on?
Yeah, I mean, so it's theotherapartment.com, which has a good archive of what's going on, and I guess we'll continue that. And we each have.
We're also available on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
All the social medias. We'll share that out afterwards with everyone here as well.
Yeah.
And we have a few questions that have come in through chat. So I think we have time to get through these 3 questions here. Mary Lou is asking if there is some special significance to the color blue.
Yeah, it's my favorite color, and ever since I can remember, and so it's yeah, I don't know why I like it so much, and I've been using that in all my projects. And Sazmanab's colors are blue, the other apartment is blue, and I had this blue room. I'm wearing blue, and for me, it's calm. It's like water. It's sea. It's yeah. I don't know what else I can say about that, but it's yeah. It's water.
Perfect. Stephen has a great question and is asking, what was the response in Tehran to the other apartment?
Yeah, so it's the response here was sort of, I guess, similar in some ways, but different in other ways, because it's when you, I think when you come to the mattress, you are expecting you're expecting to see an installation or some kind of work, and you see just that. You see an apartment inside the museum. But here, where people come to my apartment, they're expecting to see the sub-layer, which is the exhibition that is happening in the apartment. But so for people who are not really, who don't really know about the other apartment, the project, when they come to see the exhibition, they see these images and videos of the other existing apartment. So there is that, and I guess, I mean, it's been interesting for people to see the not the apartment itself. It's not that interesting maybe to people because it's not really duplicated. It's the objects they see, but when they see documentation of the other apartment, it's very interesting to them, and then the actual programming that is happening at the space. And I guess, again, we haven't had, I guess, in that sense, the chance to have people interact at the same time like we had in some of our former projects. So we didn't had that element, I guess, in a sense, because of some of the time difference, I guess, in some ways. We didn't hold a live event, but we did have this show, and it was really interesting for people to see this kind of American, Iranian, Mexican, and all these duplications. And yeah, so I guess that's what I gathered from people's responses, but I have to ask them.
All right, and our last question for today is from Bethany, who is wondering, what kind of exposure have your neighbors had to your apartment before the installation?
So the neighbors here, I mean, doing Sazmanab, this art space that I used to run, again, because they're running an art space like the space that I was running, it's not easy. And in Iran, I don't have a license, and you have to have a license, and if you don't really get that sort of license, you have to usually get a license to open up a gallery space, a commercial gallery space where you sell works, and everything has to be pre-approved by the government before they're shown in the gallery. So it's running a space that I like, the space that I used to run and I do run now. It's not something I can really publicly publicize, promote, and that's why it's available on social media. It's not like it's really secretive or anything. You can, for people who are interested or just they know of the art scene here in Tehran, they get to they'll know what to look for, and they'll find the programming, and they can just come and see the shows. But the neighbors have been, I mean, it's not, I can't really have neighbors come over because it's just, I can't really announce that I'm doing that here, doing what I'm doing now in the apartment. And I'm renting the apartment, so I'm not the owner of this apartment, and I don't think the owner will approve of how I'm using his apartment. So there's also that.
One of Sohrab's neighbors is across the street, which is the Russian embassy.
Yeah, so that's one of my neighbors. One is a priest, and there is also the British embassy. So it's a complicated neighborhood.
But just, you know, one thing that but folks here might not know, because we have so many, like there's bunker projects and there's a million in the United States, apartment galleries and things like that. But Sohrab started this under a very different cultural condition, out of an act of necessity, right? That the, you know, not, you can't really have a storefront art space. And to do the programming that he was doing, which was very independent and international, having it in the apartment was like, again, it was like the loophole, right? The act that, you know, and calling it the water department was a way of confusing people even initially, right? And so in some ways, what we're doing is just an extension of real life conditions.
Well, with that, Jon and Sohrab, thank you so much for taking this time to talk to us, and you know, just kind of having a final celebration of the apartment, the other apartment, and a little bit of a farewell. Thank you, Sohrab, for joining us all the way over in Iran in the evening, and to our members, thank you guys so much for coming and taking some time this morning to speak with us. Just to remind everyone that the other apartment is at the Mattress Factory through November 15th before we start the deinstallation, which will be, I'm very interested to see how that deinstallation will go. That's going to be quite the feat. So please feel free to come and check it out in the next couple weeks, and get your tickets online. And if you have any questions or need any help getting tickets, Mallory and I are always here to help out members. So thank you very much. And thank you, Jon, Sohrab. Bethany says thank you. Mary Lou says thank you from Jon, Carson, and myself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yes, thank you, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, Julie.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Sohrab. Thanks so much.